Hello, I'm William Henry. Welcome to The Awakened Soul. Sitchin famously reinterpreted ancient Sumerian texts that he claimed told of extraterrestrials called Anunnaki, or Shining Ones, who came to Earth from a mysterious, previously unknown planet X hundreds of thousands of years ago. Their base of operations was Mesopotamia, present-day Iraq. Buried beneath the sands of Iraq are the secrets of these Shining Ones. And according to Bible prophecy, the city of Babylon is destroyed near the end of the age. This means it must be rebuilt. Saddam Hussein spent over $500 million during the 1980s on the reconstruction and reestablishment of Babylon in fulfillment of that prophecy. In 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. He looted its treasure, including the Ark of the Covenant. He also took 10,000 Jews from Jerusalem and held them captive in Babylon. He needed the wise men of the Temple of Solomon to make a golden gadget that opened a fiery furnace. 3 of these wise men entered the fiery furnace and came back with the Son of God, as in Jesus, in tow, suggesting that this was actually some kind of a portal. I want to talk about what the Jews learned while they were in Babylon. During their 70 years in Babylon, between 586 BC and 516 BC, the exiled Jewish people, including the ascension prophets Ezekiel and Daniel, came into contact with the Zoroastrians from Iran, among other learned scholars, and they learned many new doctrines from them. Zoroastrianism was founded by Zarathustra Spinaman of Central Asia. He was the first messenger of the wise supreme being known as Ahura Mazda. The Greeks called him Zorro, meaning shining, Aster, meaning star. And foremost among his teachings is the idea of bodily resurrection and ascension. Before their exile in Babylon, the Jews did not believe in heaven or hell or in the resurrection of the body or soul. They believed that once you died or were dead, your soul goes to Sheol, meaning the prison house, and that was the end of existence. But while they were in Babylon, the Zoroastrians and the ancient Babylonians taught them about paradise and about a final judgment of all souls and about the resurrection into new bodies of light. When the Jews arrived in Babylon, they were greeted by the fabulous sight of the Esagila, the lofty house. This ziggurat was dedicated to the Mesopotamian god Marduk, who is portrayed wearing a robe covered with stars. He was a celestial being. Also called the house that lifts its head high, the Esagila was his place of ascension. This great ziggurat, meaning rising building or temple tower of Babylon, was equivalent to the step pyramid or stairway to heaven in Saqqara, Egypt. The description of Marduk's second temple, the Etemenanki, provided the Greek researcher Herodotus in his book, The Histories, astonishing details about the temple ritual and its purpose. The Temple of Bel, he said, the Babylonian Zeus, was still in existence in my time, wrote Herodotus. It has a solid central tower, 1 stadium square, with a second erected on top of it, and then a third, and so on up to 8. All 8 towers can be climbed by a spiral way running round the outside, and about halfway up, there are seats for those who make the ascent to rest on. On the summit of the topmost tower stands a great temple with a fine large couch in it, richly covered, and a golden table beside it. The shrine contains no image, and no one spends the night in there except one Babylonian woman, all alone, who, however, it may be that the god has chosen her for a specific reason. The Chaldeans say, though Herodotus didn't believe them, that the god, Marduk himself, enters the temple in person and takes his rest upon the bed. What Herodotus had a hard time believing is the idea that Marduk, a celestial being, a god, manifests as a human in his temple. Not only that, but his intention is to, disrobe and lay with the human female of his choice. The ziggurat is a cosmic pole, a ladder, or a mountain that leads to heaven, where the gods Marduk, Shamash, Adad, and others dwell at the throne of the supreme god, whose name is Anu. Today, we call such a place a stargate. This Etymonanke Ascension Tower of ancient Babylon served as the backdrop for one of the greatest spiritual and literary revolutions the world has ever seen. It began when the Jewish mystics returned to Jerusalem during the 4th century BC and came into contact with these teachings. These teachings came into fruition at the time of Jesus, who is shown ascending from a spiraling mountain that highly resembles the bell tower of Babylon. We see Jesus entering the portal of the sun and becoming one with all that is. Avatars, such as Apollonius of Tyana, a student of Pythagoras, who was born into the same world as Jesus and whose miraculous feats have been compared to him, began to teach ascension to the throne of God as a practical reality. Assuredly, many more we have never heard of attempted this great feat. One secret of boundary crossing was that by reciting the stories of the visionary ascents of past ascenders, one could repeat the visionary ascent of the past ascenders. Dr. Himmelfarb tells us that simply reading about the ascension in these texts is powerful in and of itself. The stories are visualizations and mind maps. This is more than just a thought experiment. As one thinks about it and visualizes or replicates their ascension in their mind, one begins to live their ascension in advance. A whole body of Jewish and Christian literature called Merkaba mysticism emerged at this time and comprises what may be thought of as flight simulation training manuals or boundary crossing for the ascent of the soul manuals. Manuals that teach us how to ascend to the divine throne, traveling through the halls or holes of space on our soul's winged ring. One thing is clear. These secrets appear to have originated with the Anunnaki. And a lot of people don't know this because they've been distracted in a way by Sitchin's theory that the Anunnaki came here not to teach us ascension, but in search of some mysterious blue stones and gold to repair the decaying atmosphere of their home planet, and that they created humans as a slave race to do this work for them. While Sitchin's theory is not supported by the Sumerian texts, which say nothing about the Anunnaki coming to Earth for gold, virtually all open-minded historical and theological scholars do agree that the Old Testament's book of Genesis was extracted from older Sumerian records, the stories of the Anunnaki. For me, the story of them, the Anunnaki coming to Earth to mine gold, just didn't add up. It didn't make sense to me that these advanced beings would come clear across the solar system just for gold and those mysterious blue stones. I know that gold is a rare commodity in the universe, but the Anunnaki are supposed to have been at least the level of technological advancement that we are today. And we're less than 100 years from warp drives a la Star Trek and nanofabrication. But the Anunnaki had to come here in rocket ships to create a slave race to mine gold? Didn't believe that. What triggered my doubt was Sitchin's assertion that Enki, the god who retooled our DNA, was also an alchemist. And alchemists, we know, endeavor to turn base metals into gold. So why didn't Enki simply grab a hunk of space rock and transmute it? The reason I propose is because the higher actual goal of an alchemist is to turn our leaden soul into pure gold through a process of self-purification and self-realization. It was then that I realized that this story, told in poetry, is a parable for purifying in the ascent of the soul. The story of the Anunnaki is about them coming here to assist us in our ascension into the stars, and this is humanity's oldest story. It's important to note that in Sitchin's theory, the pretext of the arrival of the Anunnaki was a cosmic cataclysm. Two planets, one called Tiamat, the other called An or Nibiru, but referred to as Planet X, collided, leaving one of these planets shattered. As a result of this confrontation, Tiamat was split in two. One half of Tiamat became the asteroid belt. The other half became Earth. By splitting or dividing Tiamat in two, this marauding planet released an ocean of blood into the cosmos. But blood is lifeless without soul. So what if Tiamat also released souls into the cosmos? What happened to those souls?